Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never practice nunchucks in a crowded room. Never eat chole before a road trip. Always take your shirt off before you iron it. Don't take a call near a swimming pool. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
All politics is fascinating. All politics is fascinating, complex. It's filled with interesting characters, just as we saw the other day with our Cut the Clutter episode on French politics. So if politics of France is that complex, you can imagine the politics of a big democracy like India. India in particular has another blessing also for us journalists, which is that it has diversity. It has diversity of languages, religions, regions, caste, all kinds of diversity. And that diversity has produced the most brilliant mix of leaders, parties, ideologies, and ideas, political ideas. There is a large range. There is a large range from the Congress to the BJP and from DMK to the Akali Dal in this entire lot. And of course, the left parties all over. In the middle of all this, what is probably the most fascinating party that came up in our times? Many of the other parties originated in the early 20th century. I would say including the BJP because the idea of RSS came up at that time. Among the parties that emerged in our lifetimes, in this epoch, the post-independence epoch, is Shiv Sena. Shiv Sena as founded by Balasaheb Thackeray. That is among the most fascinating parties in India. It's also become even more interesting now because the party has gone through a split. One section in the split is ruling the state in the sense that that faction's leader is the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Shiv Sena is essentially a Maharashtra party. The other faction, however, you can call it the faction, they will call themselves the original, right? The other faction, that is the Uddhav Thackeray faction, they are not in power, but in this parliamentary election, they have helped the adversaries of the breakaway Shiv Sena and the BJP, breakaway Shiv Sena and its older sibling or older partner, the BJP, the senior party of the BJP. The Uddhav Shiv Sena has enabled the chronic old adversaries of the BJP do much better in Maharashtra elections. If anything, one of the reasons Narendra Modi has fallen so far behind the majority mark is that his party and his combination has done so poorly in Maharashtra compared to the challengers. Now, therein lies a very complex and fascinating story. Now, before I go any further, two things. One, I will show you a set of graphics, 1, 2, 3 like that. They are already on your screen. You see them. You absorb them as I talk, so it might be easier to understand what we are talking about. The second, I will talk with you for some time. I will talk to you about how Shiv Sena came up and the basic changes Shiv Sena put itself through or went through or decided to go through, particularly from 2010 onwards and then definitely gathering momentum 2014 onwards, which started its distancing from its iron ally, you can call it, iron ally, the BJP, because I have said often enough that BJP has two natural allies, that is the Shiv Sena and the Shiromani Akali Dal, because both parties do their politics entirely in the name of religion, one in the name of Hindutva, that Shiv Sena, that's a perfect fit with the BJP, and second, the Akali Dal, also in the name of religion, a religion which is very close to Hinduism and where the BJP and RSS see no contradiction. So what happened and why did this split and this distancing come? That is the most fascinating story. I will come to that. Now, first of all, the three graphics. These graphics we will explain to you in some detail because after I have done my speaking, in a few more minutes, Manasi Phadke, who's our deputy editor based in Maharashtra and who watches not just all of Maharashtra and Goa and Gujarat, but also Tamil Nadu, important parts of the south as well. She will join in from Mumbai and She will help us understand some of these facts a little bit better on the ground, particularly these graphics as well. Right now, these graphics tell you one basic point. If you see the high point in the graphic, the highest bar in the graphic is for Uddhav Thackeray faction of the Shiv Sena, right? And the second is for the leading Hindutva force, as in the BJP Hindutva force. Uddhav Thackeray would say his party is also a Hindutva party, right? But this second graphic, the second bar, the lower bar, is that of the BJP or the other Shiv Sena, Shinde Shiv Sena, in partnership with the BJP. Now, what are these graphics about? These graphics are not about parliamentary constituencies in Maharashtra. These graphics are about three assembly segments in Mumbai, three assembly segments in three different parliamentary constituencies of Mumbai. Why are we showing these to you? To show that Uddhav Thackeray Shiv Sena is much more than BJP or the Shinde Shiv Sena. That's because this is where, even when Shiv Sena was together in the past, it was one party, or when it was in partnership with the BJP, they never got this many votes. And suddenly now Shiv Sena, that is Thackeray Shiv Sena by itself, gets so many more votes. Why? Because these three assembly segments, that is Mumbai Devi in Mumbai South, then Mankhurd Shivaji Nagar in Mumbai North East, and Anushakti Nagar in Mumbai South Central. All of these assembly segments have a large Muslim population. You could go ahead and say these are predominantly Muslim populated. So, what happened in the past? You can see the second graphic. One graphic is for 2024, but now one graphic is for 2019. And you can see the change there. You can see that the Shiv Sena, then in partnership with the BJP, or whether the BJP had a candidate or Shiv Sena had that candidate, polled much fewer votes there than the Thackeray Shiv Sena has done this time. What that means is that the Muslim vote in these constituencies has shifted to Shiv Sena, to Thackeray Shiv Sena. Now remember, Balasaheb Thackeray ran his politics against Muslims. He said rude things about Muslims that the other Hindutva crowd got to learn to use much later in the post-Vajpayee era. Until then, it was seen to be a cheap thing to use language like that. But Balasaheb Thackeray, the founder, started doing it earlier. Now, this is a dramatic shift. If now large numbers of Muslims are voting for his party, now it tells us many things. Once it tells us simply that now that the Shiv Sena has signed up with NCP and Congress, to whom most of the Muslim vote used to go, Muslims are voting, their vote is being transferred to Shiv Sena. So first of all, this is very interesting because usually we've believed that Congress party is not able to transfer its votes to others in a coalition. It was seen that only BSP, SP, parties like those were able to transfer their vote to others, or the BJP, and again to like-minded parties. So vote transfer between NCP, Congress party, you can understand they are like-minded parties. But transferring your vote to a party where seemingly there are strong ideological contradictions, that's the important part. And the second part is the damage this has caused to BJP and the faction of Shiv Sena that it has partnered. Because if Uddhav Shiv Sena is able to retain a bunch of its original Shiv Sena vote, because a lot of the Shiv Senics see this as the original Sena, as the real Sena, and that's why his party has done better than the faction Shiv Sena this time in parliament elections. 9 seats compared to 7 seats. So while he brings along a lot of that vote, at the same time, if he gets this vote, which comes in from NCP Congress, essentially the Muslim vote, that becomes a very strong combination. Now the point that I am getting to is, Mansi will explain to us what each of these graphics means in terms of the locality, in terms of the population, what's been happening there. She's on the ground, she understands it. What I'm trying to tell you is that this has been a big ideological and political shift in Indian politics. Nobody had imagined a key essential ally of the BJP or a key essential constituent of Hindutva ideology breaking away and going on the secular side. Now, this is a change that's been taking place, that's been evolving in the Thackeray Shiv Sena for some time. It also started evolving because his young son, Aditya, he's more modern. He also took certain positions on environmental issues, which would be described today as woke, right? So that might have had some influence. Balasaheb Thackeray passed away on 17th of November 2012. That might have had a role, but I think a bigger role was played by something else that happened just at the time that Balasaheb Thackeray was physically declining and passed away. Because by that time, Narendra Modi had begun to rise as the preeminent leader of the BJP, already putting LK Advani, Sushma Swaraj, Arun Jaitley, Nitin Gadkari, Rajnath Singh, them in the shade, because in the base of the BJP, he seemed to be much more popular and powerful. He also was rising as Hindu Hriday Samrat. Now remember, in the Vajpayee-Advani era, when the BJP Shiv Sena partnership did very well, BJP let Shiv Sena have the chief ministership in Maharashtra. That's how Manohar Joshi, for example, became chief minister. Unlike that period, now the BJP had a Hindu Hriday Samrat, which wasn't the case earlier. Now, in this country, Balasaheb Thackeray and his followers and his legatees and his family would have thought there can be only one Hindu Hriday Samrat, the original one. And who was the original one? That was Balasaheb Thackeray. So, who was this new guy who was now making claims to the same title? And that is when it looks like Shiv Sena began to get worried about the rise of the BJP, because the BJP now was moving into its own voter base. That is the Hindutva voter base. Originally, the Shiv Sena was founded in 1966 as a party of Marathi ultra-nationalism. In fact, some of the motivations that came into the founding of the Shiv Sena by Balasaheb Thackeray, he used to be a cartoonist. He had a publication called Marmik, which he started in 1960. 1966, he had acquired some faith because he had begun to talk strongly against migrants. This is not very different from what we are seeing in Europe and even in the US now in that debate, that migrants have come and taken over our jobs, they speak different languages, they are not assimilating, etc., etc., and what will happen to our native people. So he started the Marathi Manus movement, saying Marathi middle class had no jobs. People from the south particularly were coming and taking their jobs. 1966, he founded this party. It was then supported big time by Congress party's strongman at that time in Maharashtra, Vasantrao Nayak. In fact, Vasantrao Nayak and Shiv Sena were so close together, and Shiv Sena was seen so much as a protege of Vasantrao Nayak that it was sometimes even called Vasant Sena. Now, what did the Congress use this for? Congress used the Shiv Sena because of its muscle power to fight the unions. Because the left unions were very strong in Mumbai at that time, Bombay as it was called. Also, George Fernandez, yes, who later became defense minister. George Fernandez was a very strong trade union leader who did most of his stuff in Mumbai, particularly with railwaymen, and there were strikes and strikes and strikes. So mill owners were really hassled by these strikes. They wanted these unions controlled. And the Congress governments were also hassled by these strikes. They wanted these unions controlled. Now, a lot of the workers were not Maharashtrian. Workers were from outside. Leaders of these strikes were from outside. Many were leftist. It was in that situation that Vasantrao Nayak thought that a good idea was to promote a Maharashtrawadi regional group, tough regional group with street power, which will fight the unions, right? That project was greatly successful, and in the course of time, the Shiv Sena finished those unions. In fact, if you've seen Anurag Kashyap's film Bombay Velvet, I know that it got panned by the critics, but I quite liked it because some of what the film has, harking back to that period, is quite true, including this hustle over trade union activity in Mumbai. So that's how this party came up, and then by the 70s, that Maharashtravad had also evolved into Hinduvad. 1992 riots, 1992-93 riots after the Babri Masjid demolition. Those riots gave the Shiv Sena the front seat because they were seen as the party that roused the Hindus to fight the Muslims. They were indicted big time by the Sri Krishna Commission, and that in a way also worked for them electorally. And that's how the rise of the Shiv Sena came. The BJP let it be at that point because for the BJP it was good to have a party as a partner, senior partner in Maharashtra, which was consolidating the Hindu vote because Maharashtra is not an easy state for anybody to win because Maharashtra does not have only religion as a determinant of identity. It has caste, it has regions, it has economics, it has ethnicity. A large population in Bombay, for example, or Mumbai, for example, is from outside. Originally, a lot of them are Gujarati, right? And then there are people from the south, people from Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, everywhere. So in that situation, to have two parties talking Hindutva and also combining Maharashtravad, regionalism with it, was very profitable for the BJP. How did that begin to change and when? Because this movie was playing out all right. How did this change? So if you look at some data, say between 1995 and 2009, it's almost consistent data. The two partners go to elections together. Shiv Sena generally gets a few more seats than the BJP and a little bit more vote share than the BJP. In fact, in the assembly election, the Shiv Sena is ahead of the BJP, and that's why the Shiv Sena had its chief minister Manohar Joshi once. It also had Narayan Rane, right? Chief ministers in that partnership were always from the Shiv Sena. That began to change 2009 onwards. You will see a chart here of seats in Lok Sabha between 1995 and 2009. And you can see some shift. The shift is that the Shiv Sena is either limited to its average of about 17% vote share, and even when it goes up in 2014, for example, it only comes to 20.8%. Whereas the BJP has risen from its average of about 20%, 21%, suddenly to 27.6%. That in 2014, the 2014 Lok Sabha election was the moment of truth for Shiv Sena because they realized now that since Hindutva had become the shared banner with the BJP and Modi had risen as the Hindu Hriday Samrat and Balasaheb Thackeray had gone, and that's how their Hindutva vote was shifting to the BJP and they were becoming junior partners. So 2014 was the first time that Shiv Sena figured that they had become junior partners. 2012, the year Balasaheb Thackeray died, was also the year in Gujarat Modi had its third election and a spectacular third election victory. Third in succession, 2002, 2007, 2012. And by this time, it was quite evident that he was going to be the party's preeminent candidate for the Prime Minister. By 2013, that die was cast. He was going to be the candidate, and Amit Shah was moving to Delhi as well as his key figure there. Right? In that situation, Shiv Sena began to weigh its options. So how did the Shiv Sena look at this picture? 2000 assembly elections. Earlier assembly elections, Shiv Sena would get more seats than the BJP. 2014 elections, BJP got 122 seats, Shiv Sena got 63, about a half of the BJP. So they automatically became junior partners, and in fact, much more junior partners. Even in the 2004 elections, assembly elections, when the Congress and NCP had come to power and BJP Sena had done poorly, Sena had got more seats than the BJP, 62 to the BJP's 54. Now they were a half of the BJP, although they fought together. So once the Shiv Sena realized in 2014 parliament elections that the BJP was now getting ahead of them and they were firmly reduced to being junior partners and maybe declining junior partners, they decided to take a punt, did something audacious, and they decided to go it alone in the assembly elections the same year. As you know, in Maharashtra, Lok Sabha election and assembly elections take place in the same year, 3 months apart. This assembly will go to the polls in the next couple of months. When they contested separately, they contested all the seats, almost all the seats, they found that they were reduced to about a half of the BJP. So their apprehensions that the BJP was moving into a Hindutva space were right. BJP now got 122 seats and Shiv Sena got 63 seats. Again, the BJP vote share was about 28%, which was much more than the Shiv Senas, which contested all the seats, but which still had about 19%. Then we come to 2019. 2019, the two parties contested the state assembly together. So they again came back together because they had run a government together where Shiv Sena was a junior partner. They contested the state assembly election together, in which again the equation was about the same, 1:2. So BJP got 105, Shiv Sena got a little more than half at 56. Together they went above the halfway mark. Halfway mark in Maharashtra is 145. Together they went above the halfway mark. But now the Shiv Sena thought that, look, we've been reduced to junior partners because these guys came and hijacked our ideology. And they have the Hindu Hriday Samrat, right? The second one, the first one that we had is no longer there. So we are at a disadvantage. But without us, the BJP cannot form a government to use that leverage. Leverage is very important. That, look, without us, you can't form the government, so give us the chief ministership. BJP said, go take a walk. BJP also thought that Shiv Sena had no choice but to come with them because Congress and NCP will never go with them. In the process, BJP also tried to break NCP because NCP had enough seats. If they had taken another 40 from the NCP, they would have got a majority. So they sworn in Ajit Pawar with Devendra Fadnavis. Remember, in that early morning swearing in, hoping that Ajit Pawar will bring at least 40 MLAs from NCP. That did not happen, and then something dramatic happened. And that dramatic thing was that while the BJP tried to convert one of the factions, one of the parties on the secular side as a partner with a Hindutva party, that is themselves, the preeminent Hindutva party in Maharashtra decided to join hands with the two most important secular parties. Now that is the alliance which has endured since then. What has happened in this case is Uddhav Thackeray arm twisted the BJP. Although he had fewer seats, about half as many as the BJP, he failed. BJP tried to call his bluff by breaking NCP. That bluff also failed. Then Uddhav Thackeray joined hands with the other two and they set up a government, an unlikely government, where Uddhav Thackeray became the chief minister. Because in that government, the three constituents are about in the same ballpark seats, 56, 54, 44 or something like that, in the Congress being the least. That government ran for 2.5 years, and BJP's expectation that this will fall under the weight of its own contradictions did not come out true. That's when the BJP decided to break two constituents of that coalition, MVA, Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi. So they broke Shiv Sena, that is Uddhav Thackeray's party, took away Eknath Shinde, and made him chief minister on the promise of making him the chief minister. And Ajit Pawar from NCP at that point, also because BJP had so much power of the agencies, but most importantly, the promise of power in the state, promise of power in ministries in the state, that they were able to take a majority of MLAs and MPs from both parties. These respective factions were able to take it away. This election was a test of that experiment, that BJP had broken these two parties. But what were the voters thinking now with election commission, etc., and all that goes on in Delhi? These new factions had also gotten the old symbols, offices, all the trappings of the original party. And yet, it is quite evident from these elections that voters in Maharashtra decided that the originals were the real parties. So Thackeray's party was the Shiv Sena and Sharad Pawar's party was the NCP. And in this process, you can see that coalition worked well, but most importantly, and that's where we'll turn to Manasi now, the most fascinating feature here is that the Muslims in such large numbers, en masse, voted for the Shiv Sena candidates where the Shiv Sena was contesting. So they voted for the Shiv Sena candidate as they might have voted for either Samajwadi Party or the Congress Party in Uttar Pradesh because they had a partnership. So Muslims who otherwise would have gone to Samajwadi Party voted en masse for the Congress Party. The same things happened in Maharashtra between two secular parties and one avowedly Hindutva party. Now, several things have happened, and it's true that Uddhav Thackeray has redefined his Hindutva, he's refined his Hindutva, he hasn't given it up. How he has done it and what is the evidence for that, we turn to Manasi now. So please stay with me for just half a second. Manasi, thank you very much for joining in. And And thank you also for writing this fine article in our State Draft series, from which I learned so much and got the idea for this episode of Cut the Clutter also. And that's the reason I sought you out, to at least make sense of a few complex things. I will share a link of that article with the description of this video. Now tell us, what kind of artfulness is this that Uddhav Thackeray is able to call himself a Hindutva party, because he can't leave Hindutva, as you've said in your article. At the same time, also convince the Muslims to vote for him. It's one thing for us to say that Muslims voted for him because he was a partner of the Congress and the NCP. But the Muslims have a history with the Shiv Sena, which is not pleasant. So how was he able to convince them now that the tiger had changed its stripes?
So, first of all, let me also talk about this. There was a bypoll in the 1980s at Ville Parle for an assembly seat, and that was the first time Shiv Sena really tested its Hindutva agenda. That was, in fact, the first time any election in Maharashtra was fought on an Hindutva agenda. This is the time when the Shiv Sena had just embraced Hindutva in order to expand its appeal beyond simply Mumbai and its satellite towns. And Bal Thackeray appealed to people to vote for a Hindu candidate. He called Muslims several names in that election. And in years later, in the 1990s, he was actually also disenfranchised for 6 years for leading a campaign on communal lines at that time. Now, cut to now, his son Uddhav Thackeray walks into Cheetah Camp, which is a primarily Muslim-dominated slum sprawl. And he talks about how there was a wall between us, and that wall is not there anymore. And he talks about all sorts of things, but he also talks about Hindutva. And he asks the crowd there that, do you think I've left Hindutva? The crowd says no. Is my Hindutva acceptable to you? The crowd says yes. Is my Hindutva different from the BJP? The crowd says yes. So this is how he's actually re-engineering or revisioning his Hindutva. He's saying, I have not left Hindutva because he can't really afford to leave Hindutva. But he's saying my Hindutva is inclusive. My Hindutva is about giving people jobs. My Hindutva is about development and nationalism. Whereas BJP's Hindutva is all about religion. It's a very religion-oriented Hindutva. Now Uddhav Thackeray was preparing towards this for a long time. It's just that the results are seen in this election. And while the transfer of votes from Congress would have definitely helped, but the social engineering goes like this. Now, if you look at 2017, in the 2017 Mumbai civic election, Shiv Sena, which was being undivided Shiv Sena, which was being led by Uddhav Thackeray, got its first two Muslim corporators elected from primarily Muslim segments, Behrampada and Bandra and Amboli, which is a mix of Hindu and Muslim population, but that's also one place where he got a Muslim corporator elected. It fielded 5 Muslim candidates and got 20% vote share in all the 5 seats.
And the result of that is evidence of that is these 3 graphics that you show in your piece. So can you explain,
right,
and then we'll conclude?
Sure. So the first one is from Mumbai Devi, which is a Mumbai South Assembly segment, and that this segment has been represented by Congress's Amin Patel for the past 3 terms. A large Muslim-dominated area, and Shiv Sena candidate Uddhav Thackeray's candidate scored 77,469 votes here. He was fighting against Eknath Shinde-led Shiv Sena's Yamini Jadhav, who got 36,690 votes. Now, in 2019, which is the previous election, the undivided Shiv Sena had got only 38,969 votes here, and Milind Devra from the Congress had won the seat with had got 73,838 votes from this particular assembly seat. Now, Devra, as we know, has left the Congress and is with Eknath Shinde.
So if you look at the other 2 graphics, they explain the same phenomenon, that the Hindutva party last time got much fewer votes than the secular party, but this time one claimant to being Hindutva party, that is the Uddhav Thackeray Shiv Sena, seems to have got the secular vote, which is the Muslim vote in this case, and the secular party's vote, and at least some of the Hindutva parties or Shiv Sena's vote as well. That's what these 3 graphics are showing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that is Manasi's QED for you. She's demonstrated what needs to be demonstrated, and I think these graphics will stay with us, and this phenomenon will stay with us, and that now you can also see why why we call this such a fascinating phenomenon. Manasi, you've been covering politics in Maharashtra for a long time. Did you see this dramatic a change? Is Shiv Sena becoming a partner with Congress and NCP? And now, if I see the plans for the BJP, the only big plan, good plan for them is to get Uddhav Shiv Sena to break away and go back to them. First of all, how surprised are you to see the Shiv Sena, Uddhav Shiv Sena with Congress NCP? And second, do you see any prospect? How do you assess the prospect of Uddhav going back to the BJP's embrace?
The first part, it didn't really surprise a lot of us because from 2014 to 2019, even when the Shiv Sena was a part of the government, it used to sit on the treasury benches and behave like an opposition. Every day there would be something or the other against Modi and against Amit Shah, against BJP in Samna. Shiv Sena leaders may not say anything directly, but they would express their disillusionment with the BJP through their mouthpiece. So that was one. And the second part of the question is whether there would be any scope for reconciliation. As of now, it looks highly doubtful because the BJP will have to appear to be very weakened and openly accept that Uddhav Thackeray was right all this while and regional powers prevail, which the BJP will not be in a position to do. And as of now, even both sides, Devendra Fadnavis as well as Uddhav Thackeray has said that the hurt is beyond measure at this point, and reconciliation is unlikely.
Let us see, because if politics now after this election result is it's like test match cricket, then as we know, test matches are played session by session. So the next session will be the state election votes in Maharashtra, Haryana, and Jharkhand, but most important of them all, Maharashtra. So Maharashtra election, which will come up in a few months from now. So let's keep a close eye on that. Thank you, Mansi.
Thank you so much, sir.